Welcome back, sailors. This is your captain speaking. Welcome to another episode of the Bruise News. I don't know if you saw my hands the first time, but I did some stuff with them. We got some cool news today. We got some cool news, we got some good news, we got some bad news. It's all good though. That's the way that things go sometimes. I don't know if it sounds like I'm tired. It's because I am. I had a long day. Probably get into that more in my other video. But I'll just hop right into stuff. Khabib was talking today that his suspension was actually reduced and he plans on coming back for UFC 242, pretty much confirmed. That fight will be against Dustin Poirier. Again, it's an interesting fight based on the division and where everybody's sitting right now. Poirier is surprising me, just like Cerrone is a lot, but Khabib just seems like he might need a guy who can actually negate his ability to grapple instead of just completely relying on it unless somebody can get to him. I do think that pieces to beating Khabib are there. We've seen in the past with Iaquinta being successful in the later rounds and not being able to, Khabib not being able to score the takedowns. It seems to be an issue that he might run into, and it seemed like later on in that fight against Conor McGregor that he was running into that issue also, and Conor was beginning to tag him. So maybe somewhere in there, you might find somebody, or Poirier even, just putting up with the grappling and just defending, his face and his body up until a point like the second or early third round when you can see Poirier start to actually get off and stuff those takedowns and start landing punches. You might be able to see Khabib slow down and you might be able to see a new champion. I don't think that Khabib is completely unbeatable. I think that he is one-dimensional, but what he does with that one dimension is absolutely phenomenal, and wrestling is the best base to have in mixed martial arts because it's something that it's half of a big chunk. Like when you have a boxer, a boxer can be negated by wrestling, or a boxer can be negated even by leg kicks or body kicks or just kickboxing in general, because kickboxing tends to set up a tempo, whereas boxing gets negated by having a specific type of tempo like that. So there's different styles. Styles make fights, and styles are a big part of that. But when it comes down to it, having a really good wrestling base is the best way to sit. And with Khabib's style being the type of wrestler that he is, he's going to be hard to beat. But I do think the pieces are there once again, and we'll see what Poirier comes up with if that's the fight that ends up being made. But we're looking at UFC 242 as being the spot where that happens. I believe that's in September. And I believe that he also wanted it to be in Abu Dhabi. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see, what's going on with that. Conor also released a statement talking about his hand because he broke his hand, and he wanted to come back in the early summertime. So like sooner than later, like July, I think he was aiming. He was actually in a training camp trying to get ready for stuff, and they were picking a fight out for him. That's probably not happening now, the early summertime, but maybe by late summer, maybe like August, depending on how bad the handbrake is. But he was talking about how he's training a little bit too hard. Sometimes that just happens. Your hands are something that often break in mixed martial arts because, it's not really the pad work that gets you. It's the sparring and, hitting other bones and the blocking and everything that happens. So it's not anything that can be avoided. A lot of the times when fighters end up having the fight that they're scheduled to have, they end up both leaving with broken hands at the very least, because it happens. That's what happens when you start punching people. That was weird. The light just changed. Moving on, Colby Covington. Oh my bejesus, this guy. Colby was calling out everybody. He called out Mike Perry for a fight, but I'll get back to that. Usman was injured, and he said that he's saying fake news and Usman isn't actually injured. But Usman seems like a guy who wouldn't really do any of that stuff, and I think that Colby's just trying to kind of get what he wants by talking, which he's not very good at in the first place. People really just laugh at him. It's not one of those things where like people are like, yeah, he's good. It's not like watching Conor or Nate or, Chael, where they're really witty and stuff. It's just Colby's like really cringy when it comes to his trash talking. Anyways, he called out a bunch of people. He was calling out Masvidal, saying that he wants to fight Masvidal. It would be a great fight. I think they're actually friends, which is weird because Masvidal is like, one of those guys who will get up in your face when you say stuff, and Colby's one of those guys who doesn't care and he says anything to anybody. But maybe they're in the same camp. I'm not really sure. I think Masvidal kind of floats around different places, whereas Colby Covington stays with American Top Team a lot of the times and, his other camps. The Usman thing was something interesting, but then he called out John Jones, saying that he would kick John Jones' ass. Okay, so, that's all cool. I think, you can talk shit to another guy and be like, hey, I could kick your ass. I think that about a lot of people. I think I could kick a lot of people's asses, and I'm sure a lot of people think that they could kick my ass. It's just the way that it goes. But I don't go around saying that to everybody. First of all, I won't say that to, I won't just walk up to somebody and be like, I can kick your ass. Okay, well, that's one thing. When you're a fighter, it's another. Fighters need this to sort of start a feud and to get somewhere, and I understand that. But John Jones is 2 weight classes above Colby Covington, and Colby Covington hasn't beaten anybody. In fact, John Jones is talking about moving up to heavyweight and fighting at heavyweight, and if we all remember, Fabricio Verdum threw a boomerang at Colby Covington, and Colby Covington charged him with assault. And yeah, this is the same guy that's saying he can beat the shit out of John Jones. I don't think so, bud. First of all, John Jones will turn you into a pretzel. Second of all, you're a bitch. Who's a cop caller nowadays? Unless it's something serious. If you're gonna talk crap about somebody and then they talk crap about you and then a scuffle happens, you don't go and run and call the cops. You take your beating like a man. That's the way that things go. I know that it's petty and, you shouldn't go out and just be starting fights with people out on the street, and you shouldn't be, starting fights over the internet or whatever you do. But I mean, if it's if you're a professional fighter and you call somebody out and then they act on it and then you call the cops, that ain't good, man. You a bum. But anyways, going back, I think that the Masvidal fight is kind of stupid. I think that Masvidal's in a good position where he doesn't really need to do that. He's going to be making lots of money in his next few fights. And I think that taking a fight with Colby Covington where he might be close to him, he might not have that killer instinct to try to take Colby out. And the same thing goes for Colby. I think that both of those are bad fights. But the Mike Perry fight is interesting. I think that Mike Perry is a guy who will probably end up losing to Colby Covington because Colby has pretty good grappling when it comes to it. His striking isn't that great, but his grappling was definitely better than Mike Perry's, because Mike Perry is not a grappler. And if I was going to take a warm-up fight to kind of be casual about things, waiting for my title shot that I've earned, Colby was, the interim champion before he got injured himself. Not fake news apparently when it happens to him, but whatever. So if I was going to take a tune-up fight just to kind of get ready and get back into things, Mike Perry would probably be one of the top guys on my list if I was Colby Covington. Moving on, there was a cut from the UFC. It was Elias Theodorou. I think that the cut goes along with something that Dana said not that long ago, that he's actually going to be making a lot more moves in terms of cutting and signing people. He was talking about it before, saying that he doesn't really want one-dimensional fighters. I know that I was talking about Khabib being one-dimensional, but Khabib being one-dimensional is different because Khabib is super good at that one piece of the puzzle that he's good at. It's sort of like Damian Maia, where Damian Maia is so good at grappling that, yeah, he can get the job done and he makes fights exciting because if he gets a hold of you, he often... It's either that Damian Maia drags out a decision and he loses a decision by getting just out-grappled and beaten, or he subs people early on. And, usually they're exciting either way because it's nice to see a dangerous guy like that. So with Elias Theodorou, he's not a fantastic striker. He's a good grappler, and he's a good guy. He's a good human. He was a good PR guy for himself. He was funny on Twitter. He was everything that you wanted. He had a lot of fan base, but he just couldn't get the job done, and he was very one-dimensional. And I think that you're going to start to see guys like that, guys who can only grapple, start to get cut from the UFC because the fighting is transitioning into a thing where you have to be exciting in order to be where you are. You can't just, walk in there and just grapple everybody to death or just punch it. Well, punching is exciting in a way, so I don't think that, if you have guys who get into slugfest, I don't think they're going to get tossed out so fast because we do see that. But it's just one of those things I sort of don't agree with it. I think that people need time to grow. Elias is still young, but with so many people being employed by the UFC, I think that You know, Dana knows what he's doing, and it's just one of those things. Is understanding what's going on with one of those, understanding what's happening with that. So, I was just looking at my notes and I had completely forgot about something. The last piece that I want to talk about is pro wrestling. We're going to switch over to some pro wrestling. So, yesterday, there was a pay-per-view that happened. It was called Double or Nothing. It was by AEW. They're the new promotion started by Cody Rhodes. They got a good TV deal going on. It's all elite wrestling. It's looking so good. They had I'm a big WWE fan, and I'm a big fan of all aspects of fighting and stuff like that. So I'm a big fan of pro wrestling as well. And AEW did their first big televised event that they're starting as a promotion, and it was amazing. They did so well from top to bottom. There's so many great matches. They had the Casino Battle Royale match, which was sort of like the WWE version of the Royal Rumble. It was called the Casino Battle Royale, and Hangman Page ended up winning that, coming back. He was actually supposed to be in the main event versus Neville, who goes by Pac now. They were supposed to have a match, but I think that Pac had a bit of contract issues, like a contractual issue. That sounded weird when you say it like that, eh? Anyways, he had an issue with that, so he ended up pulling out of the event. So then they did this, and they had a new main event, which was Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega, but I'll get to that. And the Battle Royale was awesome. There's lots of great returns, like Glacier from WCW, and they had Tommy Dreamer was in there. There was just so many good returns. It was awesome from top to bottom. It was just an awesome Battle Royale. It was really showing the WWE up in terms of the quality of their match, because they had everything that they needed. They had the guy that you wanted to win. He won, and he came in at a good spot, and they had good spots in the match, and they had, you know, those awesome returns, and it was just amazing. The female match was good. They had some other matches that were good. The Young Bucks had this crazy tag match against the Lucha Bros. And if you want to just go, there's a really good, like, 30-minute highlight reel of the entire event that you can watch and just see all the best stuff from it. And I definitely suggest checking it out, because it was awesome if you're a fan of pro wrestling and you didn't get to catch the event. But the Lucha Bros went up against the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks ended up winning. They're the best tag team in the world without a doubt. Of the Super Kick Party, you know, it's just awesome. Then we had, before that match actually, it was Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes, and Dustin Rhodes is actually Cody's brother, and he's Goldust in the WWE. They had this insane match that just had so much awesome chemistry, and there was a lot of blood. It was tough to watch at times. It was emotional and had everything that you wanted. It was truly a story told inside of the ring when you're watching it. The choreographed product that we were given was just next level when it came to it. After the end of the match, I should mention that Goldust is 50 years old, and he went toe-to-toe with his brother, and Cody's a fast guy, and the match was it was phenomenal. Anyways, after the match, Cody, he stopped and he picked up the microphone after walking away, and he came back and he's like, "Oh, I need my brother," and they shared this moment, and it was just so beautiful, and it was so awesome. Great storytelling. I absolutely loved it. And then we move on to the main event, Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega he's so good. He's definitely the best wrestler in the world right now, without a doubt. Maybe a close second, third would be AJ and Finn Balor, Seth Rollins, but Kenny Omega is just so good. He's a big guy. He flies around. He just does so many awesome moves. He's just so awesome. He's so awesome. I wish that he came over to the WWE, but I think that AEW might be able to give him the storylines and the justice to really showcase his character better to America, you know, and to Canada, to see this guy really be able to show what he's capable of doing. The WWE writers have been letting everybody down lately. Anyways, not to go off on that, maybe I'll talk about that at some other point, but they had this fantastic match. Chris Jericho ended up winning the rubber match because Kenny Omega won the original match in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So Chris Jericho won the rubber match, so it's setting up, a third match, obviously. Chris Jericho's getting up there, but it was phenomenal anyways. Then after the match was done, Chris Jericho had won, Jon Moxley comes down in the ring. If you don't know who Jon Moxley is, that's the original name for Dean Ambrose from the WWE. So it was crazy. He came out, he started beating the crap out of everybody, referees. It was awesome. The event was awesome. It was phenomenal. I'm so excited for when they start their broadcasting in October, I believe. I think it's October that they're starting. So top to bottom, AEW, Double or Nothing. It was awesome. I'm just really glad I didn't see CM Punk, because I really want to see CM Punk back in the WWE, because I want to see him fix things with them. I want to see a Wicked Rumble return with him, because I will absolutely lose it. The pop that CM Punk will get if he comes back to the WWE will be the biggest pop that anybody will ever have in the history of the ever. I don't think there's any comparison. The dude needs to come back. He needs to get over whatever happened, and they need to fix that, because I want to see that so bad. And the way that they're building this best in the world stuff with Shane McMahon has me itching for him to return. And now that he wasn't at the AEW event, it really makes me feel like CM Punk's thinking about it. Anyways, I want to thank everybody for watching. This was a good, juicy video. Lots of info, lots of talking. I hope not too many ums in there. But anyways, I'm doing the best that I can, and I'm doing everything that I can. Anyways, love you guys. Have a good one. Bye.